The Jets
Recording in
defeated the
progress.
Oilers last night in overtime. The case that I made is that we really need to be strong as a country right now. We are fighting a trade war on two fronts. We have the Trump tariffs, which take up so much attention, but in Manitoba, those tariffs from China on pork, on canola, are a very, very serious threat to our economy. So to have all the first ministers gathering together at the War Museum here in Ottawa as we're fighting a trade war, an economic war on two fronts is very significant. And we talked a lot about projects that are nation building in nature. We talked about interprovincial trade. We talked about the relationship with the US and the People's Republic of China. So I brought forward the Manitoba perspective when we're talking about nation building projects, electricity exports to go east-west, but also to the north with the Kivalliq project. The Churchill investments that we've been making, acknowledging the new investments the Fed's announced today, are also nation building in nature because it helps us to get more goods to market. Here in Ottawa, for context, I also met with Minister Freeland separately, as well as with the leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre, and the leader of the NDP federally, Jagmeet Singh, and made the case on these projects being in the national interest as well, and particularly with Churchill. If we can work together with the federal government on the regulatory structure there and expand that shipping season potentially, that makes that even more valuable of an export opportunity for Manitoba, but really for the whole country. Of course, along the way, there's a lot of, other issues that I raised in relation to carbon capture, Highway 1 East as a trading corridor, other road projects, ensuring that we have Manitoba's interests represented on agriculture, manufacturing, the carbon capture opportunities that we have, and the other trade diversification projects like the Prairie Innovation Center and the GATE project. Those are all important things to raise. And then, of course, just talking about the mining industry and the aerospace sector that we have in Manitoba as being particular strengths, in addition to the ones I already mentioned. So it was a good discussion. It was a good meeting. It's clear that, on the eve of this upcoming federal election, that Team Canada is working together in a very important way. And as the Premier of Manitoba, alongside the premiers of the other provinces and territories, we're going to continue to play a leadership role, standing up for your jobs and our economy, while the federal government seeks greater clarity at that level. So I think those are my remarks for the opening comments, and I'm happy to open it up to specific questions that people may have.
Thank you, Premier. As I mentioned, 3 reporters. We'll start with Carol Sanders from the Free Press with 1 question, 1 follow-up, and then time permitting, we can kind of go to a scrum.
Sure.
Hi, Premier. So can you tell us how long your meeting went and what specifically you heard from the Prime Minister and the other premiers about help for canola and pork producers here in Manitoba?
Well, the Prime Minister committed to engage directly with President Xi on this issue. And to have that engagement happen before the writ drop is important. I think all of us in the ag regions of the province, as well as the fishing provinces, are being hit by these tariffs from the PRC as well. It's an important priority. We need to show that there's a path forward here, that there's hope for the canola producers, for the pork industry, for the pork processors, and everyone who is dealing with uncertainty in ag right now. And we got to keep in mind that while the PRC is a very important export market, the US is our biggest trading partner as well. So we have to carry this out in a smart, very, very intelligent way that puts our national interests first and foremost, and the agricultural interests that we have in Manitoba being at the top of the list there. So hearing Prime Minister Carney commit to raising this with President Xi of China on the eve of the election is important. Hopefully that provides some reassurance to our ag industry. We're definitely stepping up. You saw the commitment in our budget to be there for the ag industry, and the federal government is going to be bringing forward those issues after the advocacy of ourselves and some of our prairie neighbors as well too.
So does the Tesla Chinese EV rebate not does that have anything to do with anything at all? I mean, does anybody care that Manitoba is not going to rebate Chinese EVs when the Prime Minister goes to meet with President Xi? I don't know that they're paying that close of attention, but canola is a big deal for Manitoba. So is it worth it to do something that might tick off the Chinese when we're wanting them to buy our canola?
Well, the people that matters to are Manitobans. And the question right now is whether we want to be spending your tax dollars subsidizing people who are in a tariff war with us. And so certainly there's about $2 million in Tesla rebates handed out already. And removing that while the U.S. tariffs, the Trump tariffs are being talked about, I think makes a lot of sense. When it comes to the Chinese EV manufacturers, at this point, it's a largely symbolic gesture because we're not aware, at least at the last point that I got an update, of any rebates going out from Manitoba to Chinese manufactured vehicles. We're prepared to remove that, though, if there is a path forward here on canola and pork being tariff free. So really it's a question about the resources that we invest in Manitoba and where we want to offer our incentives. And for now, we're saying we want to target those incentives towards Canadian and North American manufactured EV vehicles, made in Canada cars, made in Canada EVs. But of course, if there's a path forward here to help support the ag industry, we're definitely willing to revisit that.
Up next from the Canadian Press, Steve Lambert.
Oh, hi, Premier. Did you have any specific advice to the PM on what he should offer the Chinese government? And as a part two of that one, did the PM, when you said he committed to reaching out to the Chinese president, did he commit to doing so before the writ drop?
Yeah, that was the commitment that I heard. And the advice that I brought forward was that the Prime Minister needs to engage with the PRC and ensure that our agricultural interests are top of mind. Ag is the backbone of our economy in Manitoba, and we need to ensure that the steps are being taken to support our producers. And the complicating factor is anything that happens through that engagement with the PRC can potentially also impact the relationship with the US, which is, as we all know, super, super important for the ag industry as well. So the advice that I shared was to engage with the PRC and to ensure that as you do so, we're keeping an eye on preserving access for ag producers to the American market as well.
Okay, and in terms of internal trade barriers, lots of provinces talk about reducing them. As you've mentioned, some provinces have lower barriers already, some provinces have higher. Did you see any progress on that front in terms of concrete measures?
Yeah, I think we've definitely heard a strong indication from the federal government. I won't scoop them on that in terms of what they're looking to do there. And all the other provinces and territories are showing interest. There's maybe a little bit of daylight in terms of the approach that's going to be taken. You've heard, I think, from Nova Scotia about a legislated approach, and I think some folks are rallying around that approach. You've heard other folks who are maybe just going to do it through rule change and working with their regulators and steps like that. So from Manitoba's perspective, we've done that work already. I think we welcome these steps by other provinces and territories because it's an opportunity for us to grow our economy. And the real opportunity for Manitoba is really on the services side. So if we can get those credentials recognized in other jurisdictions across Canada, and our experts, our engineers, people can start offering consulting services in other provinces and territories, that could lead to some strong GDP growth, some good economic benefits, some more jobs in Manitoba. So we encourage that. And then, of course, the one that makes the most sense to the average person out there is just direct to consumer alcohol. So there was a lot of talk about, summer barbecues, maybe having, seafood from the Atlantic and BC regions, and great barbecue from the prairies, and grains from all over. But then we just want to make sure that there's a Manitoba a beer at that summer barbecue that the people hosting it can order direct to their home, no matter where they are in Canada.
And representing CBC, Bartley Kivas. Bart, do you have a question? Okay, if not, we could move on. If you have a few minutes, Premier, open scrum for any of the last questions.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a couple of minutes. Last call. Carol, Steve,
Last
any
call.
follow-up?
Sure. My computer failed here. I have questions. Forgive me. Sorry about that.
I knew he couldn't be silenced.
Yeah, it was, yes. My apologies for 5 years after the pandemic. I should figure out how to use a mute button. Mr. Premier, I understand the levity you were attempting to inject with the Jets comments today, but I do have to ask.
Successfully injected, I would say.
Okay, sure.
The joke killed in the room is what I'm telling you, Bart.
Got it.
That's your two questions. Thanks.
No.
I appreciate everyone's time today. No, just kidding.
Okay. So now that was a good one. Daniel Smith said we'd be facing an unprecedented national unity crisis if Ottawa did not agree to her demands. Demands to Mark Carney. What do you think of her timing and her tone, Mr. Premier?
Well, the tone that I'm bringing forward is Team Canada. Manitoba, we're the center of the country. We got the big roadside attraction just east of Winnipeg to prove it. And I think our role is to just make sure that Team Canada's interests are well represented. And the tone of the meeting today was not only very productive and constructive, but also collegial and positive, I would say, to a person. I think everyone congratulated Mark Carney on being Prime Minister, and everybody brought forward in good faith suggestions about how we can do nation building infrastructure projects, how we can knock down provincial trade barriers, and how we can manage the relationship with the US and the PRC. So from my perspective, everyone here sees the same news reports that you do, and everyone knows that we're on the eve of an election call. And I think it was a positive step today in the name of national unity that we have the leaders of all the provinces and territories and the federal government being able to get together and to agree on a lot of shared priorities. And then, of course, I think Canadians are craving certainty at the federal level. That's been lacking for the past few months. The election will decide that. And in the meantime, we as the premiers of the provinces and territories will be continuing to stand up for our economy nationally and your jobs.
Mr. Premier, though, I'm asking you to comment. I understand what you're saying about your approach, but the Premier Smith did make these comments that were very much not Team Canada. She's skating in a whole completely different direction here. So will you please comment on the danger posed by publicly not presenting a united front, especially to our neighbors to the south?
Well, we're stronger when we work together and when we have a unified voice as Team Canada. And every time that I show up at a First Ministers meeting, there is a really constructive, positive tone, and we saw that again today. From what I understand, there's a joint statement that's going to probably arrive in your inboxes shortly that shows that unity. And so I hope that the reporting, is able to convey the unity that exists among First Ministers. Bottom line is this: the premiers of every province and territory got together with the Prime Minister today, and we agreed on building up Canada. And now there's going to be an election to decide, who the person is that Canadians want to see lead this country in the future. But I think that commitment to work together with whoever Canadians decide is going to be there. Certainly going to be there for myself as a Premier of Manitoba, and I think the premiers of all the provinces and territories will support that.
Quick question, Premier, if I may. You're good at reading the room. How was it different with Mark Carney than it was with Justin Trudeau for these First Ministers meetings? I don't know. How does he work the room? What's different?
Well, I had the opportunity to work with Prime Minister Trudeau at a number of First Ministers meetings because of the U.S. situation. And now I've had the opportunity to see Mark Carney in the Prime Minister's chair. And what I saw today was a deal maker. All right. Good.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. This concludes our briefing.
Thanks for coordinating, and thanks everybody for your time.